what were the signs that Jesus gave that were the major signs of the last day? The first sign we can look at is the fact that Elijah was to come before the end of the age. Most people deny that Elijah came as predicted. However, Jesus said that John the Immerser was the predicted Elijah. Matthew 11, verse 11 through 15, and Matthew 17, verses 9 through 13. Jesus' challenge was that for he who has ears to hear, let him hear. And Matthew 11 was a challenge for the Jews of his day and their modern counterparts to open their eyes to the realities before them. Their preconceived ideas were blinding them to God's truth, much as it is today to most Christians. In Jesus' day, they needed to have eyes and ears attuned to what God was doing, and Jesus said Elijah had come. Another sign that Jesus talked about was the outpouring of the Holy Spirit. On Pentecost, the Spirit was poured out, and Peter said, "This is that which was spoken of by the prophet Joel." The outpouring of the Spirit occurred in Jesus' generation. One of the greatest theological tragedies is that people refuse to accept the inspired statement of Peter, and that the last days that were foretold by Joel was present in the first century. Another sign was Jesus said that the gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world. Then comes the end. Paul affirms repeatedly that the gospel had been preached into all the world in Romans 16 verses 25 and 26, and Colossians 1 verse 23, and this happened in Jesus' contemporary generation. Most people want to deny the emphatic, inspired statement of the Spirit. Another sign that Jesus gave was Jesus said when the abomination of desolation appeared, his disciples were to flee from Judea because of the coming tribulation. Matthew 24 verse 15 and forward. Jesus was speaking to living, breathing human beings when he said, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, then let those who are in Judea flee. In the first century, Eusebius says that the early church fled Judea about AD 66. The whole body of the Church of Jerusalem, having been commanded by divine revelation given to men of approved piety, there before the war, removed from the city and dwelt at a certain town in Jordan called Pella. That can be proven through historical writings. Another sign that Jesus gave was the Great Apostasy. Thessalonians 2, verse 2 and forward, tells about the Great Apostasy. In Matthew 24, verse 9 through 12, Jesus said the love of the majority of the people would grow cold. He said it would happen in his generation. The New Testament documents the reality of the apostasy. In Galatians 1, verse 6 and forward, Paul marveled that the Galatian church were going off into apostasy so quickly. And he wasn't writing to just one church with local problems. He was addressing an entire region and all the churches in that region. If you read Corinthians to see how widespread the doctrine, moral and ethical apostasy really was, then you'll know. When you read Colossians 2, when you read 2 Peter 2, when you read Jude, and many of the other epistles, it's easy to see that the apostasy was widespread. The apostasy was a very real problem in the first century. Another sign was the man of sin. And what's so amazing is that Paul specifically says that man of sin was already alive in his generation. 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 5 through 8. And, Paul's statement is pretty much ignored by most Christians today. Paul not only says that the man of sin was already alive when he wrote Thessalonians in 52 AD, he said that the one holding him back, the restrainer, was already holding him back. How can we take seriously the claim of modern day men like Hal Lindsey and others who totally ignore these facts and claim that the man of sin is alive somewhere in Europe today? The Bible gives us 6 major signs of the last day, and every one of those major signs occurred in Jesus' generation.